So I wanted to make a video today on something a little more different. And it's not a topic I've covered before, but I really wanted to. Oh, sorry. I really wanted to talk about it. That was me watching a facial showcase at E0S1 in the 2.5 MOC. So I've been watching this and I've been reading the comments, and people in the comments have been like, yo, like Dill can still keep up with Acheron and Firefly, right? Like they kind of coping in there, right? So I wanted to make this video because I was thinking about it. Why you shouldn't pull Eidolons on DPSs? Now I think it's fine to pull Eidolons if you really have that money, but if you're like, I don't know, like really going all in on one DPS and you don't plan on spending that type of money or that type of pulls on another character again, I just wouldn't recommend it, right? The issue I have with E6ing DPSs in this game is that the previous E6 DPSs have already been power crept by E0 Acheron and Firefly. I'm just gonna say it how it is. I personally think without an E6 DPS, like old 1.0 to 1.6 DPS, having also E2 or E6 supports all on the team, they're still doing probably less damage than an Acheron and Firefly team at E0S1. I'm just going to be completely honest. Maybe I'm wrong. I doubt it, though. I really, really do doubt it. So, I wanted to make this video because I think you should really only go for Eidolons in this game for either harmonies for support and sustain. Now, why am I saying sustain? Well, it's because Ling Sha kind of changes the game for the break team. Her E1 gives you like a 50% weakness break efficiency increase, and when targets are weakness broken, they get 20% defense down. So it's actually a pretty huge E1 for Ling Sha. Now, I would like to say one thing. I think there was one character in the entirety of this game where getting their E1 is actually like a good idea, honestly, because it's not going for E2, it's not going for E6, it's just going for E1, only one extra copy, so it's not as costly as the rest, and at the same time it's very worth it. Now, who am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about Firefly's E1. Now, if you don't know Firefly's E1, basically it just allows her to ignore 15% defense, and then also when in her enhanced state, like her ult, it no longer costs skill points when she uses it. So this makes Firefly incredibly skill point friendly, and this allows you to, let's say you get Ling Sha and you add her to your Firefly team, you'll now be able to skill with Ling Sha a lot more often, allowing you to break the enemies faster, allowing you to get your Firefly's damage off faster. So that's why I think Firefly's E1 is actually pretty worth it for a DPS right now, because it's pretty cheap, it's just one more copy, and it does make a pretty significant difference, right? Like really significant. Her E2 is also, I'd say, just as powerful, but I just can't recommend, unless you're like someone who really has the money for it, to go for E2 on any DPS, right? Like straight up, I just can't recommend it unless you're like saving for 2 patches in a row, so you'd only have to spend like, let's say, $100 or $50 in order to get that second or that E2 you want. Then sure, that's fine, go and do that. Get your E2 Acheron, your E2 Firefly, it doesn't really matter, right? But I simply think Eidolons for DPSs in this game are so much less worth it, because these DPSs are just getting power crept like crazy, right? The fact that an E6 Dill, an E6 Jingliu, an E6 Seal, an E6 Jing Yuan are getting out damaged like per cycle by E0 Acherons and E0 Fireflies is just insane. Like it's just straight up insane, right? And for many of you who know, I believe in this game, it doesn't actually go like 1.7, 1.8, blah, blah, blah. I believe it goes 1.6 or 2.6 and straight into 3.0. And from if we just learn from pattern recognition and the fact that enemies in MOC in these endgame modes keep getting inflated HP bars, it's just gonna keep getting worse for these older DPSs, and it's gonna get to the point eventually where they simply can't clear. I'm gonna be honest, it is what it is. If you ended up wailing on E6 Don Hung in the old days, you know, E6 Don Hung will actually probably be fine for a while, right? Because he's still very strong. But if you pull for like E0 Don Hung, E0 Jing Yuan in the old days, they're simply not going to be able to keep up at some point. I'm going to be honest, it is what it is. At some point, your Don Hung team is going to be taking 6 to 7 cycles to clear, and you're going to be relying on your new, more powerful units to clear within 2 to 3 cycles, because it's significantly easier for them, right? I actually saw people complaining about this in the Fei Xiao showcase, where some people were talking about how bad the power creep is getting, because if you don't know, the 2.5 MOC boss has 2.7 million HP. That is the highest HP any single mob boss has ever had in this game. The closest is the past and present, but the difference is that they're 3 bosses at the exact same time, so destruction units can get all that damage off easily. But this is the first time we've had a single boss, just a single boss mob at 2.7 million HP. So if your Firefly is doing 3 to 400k every E, only like 200k of that is actually going towards the boss. So you can tell it's very targeted towards Hunt for that MOC. But the point is that we keep getting these mobs with higher and higher and higher in HP. And I think something Hoyo could do to fix this is to just... This is the only way I see it, right? To worsen the power creep, allow characters to go to level 90 and boost up traces. I think this is the only way they can kinda circumvent power creep by like making all DPSs useless. This is the only way to fix that. Make characters able to go to level 90 in order to make up for the fact that all these enemies keep getting increased HP every single MOC. I want to give you an example, right? The current Argenti in the current MOC right now has 1.2 million HP. Yeah. That Argenti has 600k each phase and 1.2 million. So this 2.5 MOC boss has more than double that. So if you're struggling on Argenti, you're gonna struggle on that guy, that's for sure. He doesn't have any bullshit mechanics either, by the way. That boss has literally 0 mechanics. I think he might have a break mechanic, because I've noticed you can like break him once and then you can break again somehow. But I haven't seen anything else like mechanic wise that could help you beat him. Like I really haven't seen anything. I'm pretty confident, right, since it's a follow-up MOC, that we're gonna end up getting a follow-up like buff for follow-up attackers. But in terms of actual like mechanics that you can do to deal with his HP or his bullshit, there's nothing you can do, right? So just a quick video. Want to make this video to say don't pull for Eidolons on these DPSs. They will end up getting power gripped unless you have like the spare pulls or the money for it, right? Once again, if you want to, you can. I simply can't recommend it, because honestly, just go for Eidolons on supports. Supports work like almost always better than actual Eidolons on DPSs, and they're also more universal. Sorry for the ambulance in the background, but they're a lot more universal, since let's say your DPS who was E2 now gets replaced by a stronger DPS and you pull for that guy. Well, you can just put the other support you were using on your previous DPS to the new one. It's like supports are so much more universal and more used in teams than DPSs, and almost never replaced, that it's like I think it's completely fine to go for Eidolons on supports. Like Roa May's E1 is pretty good. I think Robin's E2 with her light cone is also really, really good. By the way, Ruame's light cone is also really good, but the reason I'm not really saying anything about it is because Ruame's best in-slot team is with the Super Break team, and her light cone barely affects the break team at all, since they don't benefit from damage bonus. But the break effect on the light cone, I guess, is nice, right? But My point being, going for Eidolons for supports is simply a lot smarter of a move than it is going for Eidolons on DPSs, unless you want to be in the red constantly. Now, I'm making this video because I kind of realized this. I'm more of a new player, right? So before I was always like, I'll just make up the damage difference of supports for an E2S1 face out, right? Like, I just get an E2S1 face out. And then I looked at showcases on YouTube, and I realized an E2S1 Fei Xiao is weaker than an E0S1 Fei Xiao with Robin on her team. And that's when I realized this is really Honkai support rail. Because in this game, I've realized so long as you have the right supports and even Eidolons on those supports, you can literally make anyone a DPS in this game. I realized this because I watched Wyatt Sky, and I believe it was the previous MLC. I believe he zero cycled with Misha. Yeah, a Misha. Now, keep in mind, I believe he has an E2S1 Robin and an E1S1 Ruan Mei. But this goes to my point of, get Eidolons on supports, and you'll be able to make any DPS or any character a DPS. I mean, I've even seen Robin zero cycles. I've seen Robin clear in a full Harmony team and just zero cycle, bro. Like, the shit is insane. These supports are so broken in this game that it's just much more worthwhile going for their Eidolons than it is to go for these DPS's Eidolons that, let's be honest, will end up being power crept when that version 3.0 hits, right? Maybe not right after, right? Like, it took Acheron until I believe 2.1 or 2.2 in order to finally come out and power creep the rest of the cast. But I think this just goes to show, right? Like, if you're patient enough, just go for supports, right? I'm still gonna go for E0S1 Fei Xiao. I know she's not as universal or strong in general as an Acheron or a Firefly. Like, she's not gonna do as much damage consistently, right? But she is my favorite design in the game, so I already decided I was gonna go for her no matter what. And unlike some of you peasants, I lost my 50-50 on Ruan Mei's banner to Bailu, so I'm guaranteed. Yeah, I'm worry free when it comes to her getting her, right? So I'm guaranteed her E0 in like 40 to 50 pulls. I may lose the light cone, but I'm not, because winners win. It's that simple. So I'm gonna be getting her light cone as well, because her light cone is busted. It gives her 54% defense ignore. Like, that shit is dumb. So yeah, I'm gonna be going for E0S1 Fei Xiao, and I'm going to be going for Ling Sha for my Firefly team, so I can put my Gallagher on my Fei Xiao team. Now, depending on how lucky I get, I may go for Ling Sha E1, because it is pretty big for break teams. I'm just gonna be honest, like, it is really big for break teams to have her E1, especially if you don't have Ruan Mei. Ling Sha is kind of a good way to make up for that, since her E1, she already has increased weakness break efficiency in her normal kit, by the way. But on top of it, with her E1, she gets another 50% weakness break efficiency increase, and she adds 20% defense down on old weakness broken targets. So if you don't have Ruan Mei, if you weren't able to get her, and you want to make up that damage loss, you can just go for E1 Ling Sha, and you're probably going to make up that damage loss. I'm not going to lie. Because not only do you make up the damage loss, but you're also breaking these mobs faster than you would with a Ruan Mei on your team, since Ling Sha has AoE and follow-ups in her ult, and they do a lot of damage, by the way. I've seen 200Ks, 300Ks for her follow-up and her ult, and I've seen like 1 to 150Ks for her skill. Like, it is very, very powerful. She is very good in that Firefly team. So if you don't have Ruan Mei, I'd recommend going for Ling Sha. And if you do have Ruan Mei, I'd still recommend going for Ling Sha, so that your team can just be much more future-proof, right? Hot take, I think even with Xiao Q's release, I still think because of Ling Shaw, the Firefly Super Break team will end up being the number one team again. The Akron team may be the number one team for like one patch, but I think right when Ling Shaw comes out, it'll go back to being the Firefly Super Break team. So yeah, hope you guys have a good day. Hope you guys have a good night. Peace.